Hey, welcome to episode 3 of the David and Brandon podcast. It's yet to be named that, but we're sticking with that for now. I'm Brandon Nutter, work with Envision in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. My co-host, David Nishizaki. Introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm David. I also work for Envision. I live in Washington, D.C. That's the District of Columbia.
That's right. And our guest today is Mark Young. Mark, you want to introduce yourself? Tell us about you and your family.
Sure. My name is Mark Young. I live in Manila, Philippines, and I'm also a part of this Envision family. And we work with the urban poor community in the Philippines.
Well, Mark, thanks for coming on, joining us today.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about how you guys are. Obviously, we're living in pretty crazy, strange times for all of us that at least none of us of our generation have lived through. How are you guys personally handling it? What is your family's response been, I guess, is the question. What's changed?
Yeah, sure. So our situation is pretty interesting. It's a very tight lockdown here in the Philippines. And so when we imagine lockdowns, we imagine it from our perspective. And so then we talk to our friends not here in the US, and they describe their lockdown. And I'm like, oh, that's not a lockdown. There's still, you can still go out and you can still, have food easily delivered. You can gather at parks for a lot of people. For us, for Melissa and the kids, they've been in the house for 40 days straight. And there's no movement at all. I go out every 2 weeks to the grocery store. And that's about a 6-hour ordeal to get groceries. And it's just because of social distancing and whatnot. And so for us, it's like we're just in the house. That's our life here. And so all of our work actually then takes place through Facebook Messenger with our partners and friends who we work with. We just can't go hang out with them because we can't leave the house.
That's basically our situation as well. I go out. Yesterday, twice in the last few days, I've had to go to the bank, and each one was like a 4-hour ordeal.
Oh wow! Yeah.
Waiting in line, trying to deposit money and get money and all those fun things. And then the grocery store it's not quite 6 hours, but it's a whole thing. It's a better part of your day to get it done. So yeah, I totally feel that.
If you've achieved it, you have accomplished something.
That's right. Absolutely.
Mark, is it a rule that only one person can leave at a time?
Yeah, that's right. And you have to have a government pass. And so you have to have it on you at all times. It's got my name on it. So I think it would work with Melissa, but I'm not sure. But just to keep it simple, I pretty much am the only one that goes out. You can't go out just to go out. So if I got pulled over and I wasn't going specifically to the store, at this point, I could actually get, this is a new aspect of our quarantine. I think starts today or tomorrow, is if you are breaking quarantine protocol, there's no more warning. They're just going to arrest you, like straight up book you, take you to jail. Wow. So you just can't mess around.
Wow.
Yeah. So if I'm leaving my house, I'm going to the grocery store, and then I'm coming back. That's it. There's no other reason to be out from the perspective of the government. So
has their enforcement become more strict because people were not complying?
Yeah. There's actually, for where we're at, we don't see that much. But apparently they said they arrested like 150,000 people for breaking quarantine. So
wow.
Manila is the most densely populated city in the world. Trying to manage, social distancing in a context like this really does require, pretty, intense kinds of strategies. And so,
Yeah.
but yeah, people break it. And there's one community now, it's a 24-hour lockdown. I mean, they can't leave. I guess there's a window 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. specifically to go to the grocery store. But like I said earlier, it's just one person at a time. So for most people, like we have air conditioning in our rooms, but in the rest of our house, it's not air conditioning. And in many homes here, there's no air conditioning, especially in the communities that we serve. And so, I mean, it's summertime here and it's 95, 100 degrees. And so it's super, super hot. And just, it's unbearable in many scenarios for people. So,
So what, give us some of the big numbers. Manila, you said most densely populated city in the world, is that what you said?
yeah.
So how many
Yeah.
people are we talking about? And then also, how long have you and Melissa been there? And
Sure.
yeah.
So, it's about 95,000 people per square mile. So to put that in perspective, Lincoln, Nebraska, which is where I'm from, is 2,400 people per square mile. And so Lincoln, Nebraska, they're huge football fans. And, Nebraska Cornhuskers is a big deal in Nebraska. And so every Saturday during football season, everyone goes down to the stadium. And there's about 95,000 people in that space. And it's packed, it's crowded, it's insane. That space is like Manila, all over. So that's the way that I describe it to people from Nebraska that have that context. So anybody who has if you're from Seattle, Seahawks, think of a stadium and think of the space around a stadium, the parking, everything that goes into that. It's about a square mile, and that's how it is here.
Are there hot dog vendors in Manila?
There are actually. It's a big hot dogs are a hugely popular meal here because they're super cheap. So, and there's lots of pork. That's one of the big staples here. So
that's also
lots of
like
hot dogs.
the football stadium.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
So how many people total in Manila?
24 million Manila MSA, metropolitan surrounding area. So.
And where are you guys located in the city?
Yeah, so we're just at the outskirts of Manila MSA. So we would be from the center of the city. We might be 15 miles east, which is might be a 2.5 hour, 3-hour drive, depending on traffic.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
So a lot of people.
A lot of people. Yeah. And in our context, a lot of people that really are that represent the marginalized, the more the poor communities, the under-resourced communities. And so in the context that we're in here, they're definitely the ones that suffer disproportionately. I mean, it's because there's no, for a lot of the community that we serve, they work, and then the money they make, they use to go and buy food to live on, right? Just, every day is a transaction of, I work, I make some money, I go buy the food that I need for that day. And so they can't work. They legally can't work. Their professions have been shut down, which is driving, which is street vending, construction. I mean, there's a lot of things that have been completely eliminated here. And so they can't work, so they can't feed their families. So they're 100% dependent. So just imagine being dependent. Like, you want to work, you're capable of working, but you're just stuck in your house, a hot house with maybe multiple generations in your home. You could see how that can get pretty difficult. And so it's one of the concerns people have, like a legitimate one, just the unrest. So that's really where we've, taken action to try to do our part in partnership with our partner church in those communities, to try to help through food distribution programs, essentially.
I've been thinking a lot about this recently. In the Philippines, it's certainly the case here in the DR, but dependency on the U.S. economy for our own economy here. And so when the U.S. economy suffers, we suffer immensely. Our brothers and sisters and friends are all suffering here. I don't know is that the case in the Philippines? Maybe it's not so much dependency on the U.S. but possibly China. Is that a thing there, or is that just unique to here?
There would be a trickle aspect, but the Asian Pacific region has a pretty strong economy, independent, explicitly. I mean, it's not directly correlated like you would be in the DR. Of course, where there is a big business here is in call centers. So the Philippines is, I think, one of the largest call center markets in the world. And so when you call your bank or the customer service for a lot of the different things that you're a part of, you're going to call a Filipino in the Philippines. And so where they've been able to keep some of that actually going, that actually has been a really positive thing. But that would be, interestingly enough, kind of more your young professional class, or your young working recent graduate class of young people. And that's been a huge blessing, actually. So
That's good.
And I think those businesses have been able to stay open.
You had mentioned too the feeding programs that you guys have been involved in. You guys were just recently featured in a video that the Alliance put out. Short video. If you haven't seen it, you should go check it out. It's doing some really cool stuff. But maybe tell us a little bit some of the things you couldn't say in a short video like that. David, you had an interesting point too about like the process. I don't know if you want to maybe explain that question a little better than I can.
Yeah, I'm curious as one who is ordered to stay at home, feeling a sense of a lot of opportunities to be out, take action, serve the communities that I'm part of. It seems like a lot of our authorities are saying, please stay home, and that's what you can do. I'm curious how you made a journey through a decision-making process, seeing a need, seeing the opportunity, recognizing that you could do it. Because I too saw that 3-minute video of you guys and the explanation of what you were doing, partnering with local churches, helping distribute food to families who are in great need. How did you navigate all of that and get to the point where you said, okay, this is what we can do, and this is how we'll do it? Take us through some of that process. I'm very curious to know how you navigated from, what you already described. We've been home for 40 days and only I can go out every so often and only go to the grocery store.
I want to say before you answer that too, like, we do missions, want to do it well. So our partners are key in this. With Envision, all Alliance missions. We're here to establish the local church, to strengthen it through our various specializations, I guess is the word we use. So I want us to say that that's, for us on this podcast, that's really important. So to walk us through that.
Sure. So our work here is with the urban poor community, and our focus is education and developing pathways out of poverty for the next generation through education. So we have and we are partnered with a church in a particular community of about I think maybe 7,000 people. And so in that community, we have, hundreds of students that we already work with. We're already engaged with their families. We're already thinking strategically, how do we effectively help these friends have a realistic opportunity and chance to move out of poverty. And to get to know Jesus and to experience holistic discipleship in that way. And so because we're already working there, we have a network there, we have relationships there, we have people in place that are living there naturally. We don't have to recruit people to live there because we're working there. They already live there. And so when the crisis hit, we're just playing our part, which is encouraging, coaching, asking what the needs are, and so then we engage another partner who's closer to where they're at, and they're able to, get the food, and then they bring it to our the people in the community, and then we already have a church already in place in the community. So when people receive food, they're actually, it's not like there's no this is from Envision, or this is from this group. I mean, it's from the church there. I hope that the people perceive God and their own community as the heroes. Because that's the truth in every way. So we just play one aspect, which is to link up resources and logistics, and I encourage it. I think it's one of the challenging things when you're working in hard environments is it's easy for team members to get really discouraged, because when you're in a dependent kind of place, there's always this temptation to feel a deference to other partners, because you're dependent and they're maybe not dependent. And so to really work to make sure that our only deference is to the Lord, but we're in this together to make sure that everyone has what they need to get through this, and so our reaction and response is just actually it's a natural one because of our relationships that are already in place. So now we have a core of maybe 1,000 people we might influence in that community, and then from that we begin to expand out to maybe 2,000 people, but we're still missing. We still can't really get as deep as we want to get to, and that's really where the serving and giving ministry kind of things has a kind of a sense of disappointment, because you're feeding and helping people, but there's still people that need help. And so that's where other nonprofits. This is also where the government plays a really important role. In fact, we are just supplementing what we are anticipating the government being able to do. And so in many cases, it's missed, but it's just missed because the needs are so massive. And so our partnership with the government is just an encouragement, same kind of a thing. We're just there to encourage, to help, to do our part, to build goodwill, to get through this season. And then our long-term goal is to make sure we've got healthy young people and families, so that we're able to continue to get them back into an education pathway and ultimately out of poverty.
Were you guys doing food distribution before all of this?
No. Mm-mm. No, that's not. We're not a relief work ministry like that, so we don't do food distribution.
Yeah.
No. But last year, actually about the same time, the community we serve had this massive fire. I mean, massive fire. Same kind of thing, same community, so like 80% of this community was completely destroyed, like gone. And so we just stepped up. And these are kids. They're in college. Some of them are in different kinds of learning contexts that are important for them to get to college. And now all of a sudden they don't have a home. And so all these kids are like, well, I can't go to school because I don't have a home. My parents are suffering. My mom is suffering if there's a one parent home. So it's like, well, we have to come in and support that, because they can't, there's no insurance. There's no way for them to move forward without some kind of assistance. So then we step in there, but it's in context. Like, it's just like a bridge. It's like we're walking alongside. They're doing the work of the trek, which is a difficult trek. We're walking alongside, and then, we're providing, sneakers and hiking stuff to help them get there. And then there's, oh my gosh, there's a river. So we have to build a bridge to make sure they can continue. Otherwise, if they can't cross, they just stop. And so that's what happened last year. Same thing this year. We're just building a bridge to get us through this. And so we can continue. And it's really, really cool to see. I mean, we have an army, so to speak, of workers in place because we're partnered with the local church that's already immersed in the community. So we don't have to go in, we don't drive in with the truck. It's there already. So
that's one of the things, in good development, and I appreciate what you're saying. I can't remember what's the word, the community-based assets. Is that the right
yeah,
term?
that's right.
I mean, there's obviously an injection of cash, right, to buy food.
Right.
But we already have. Let's use the resources we already have. We have people, we have a truck, all already in the community. We don't need to go to the grocery and buy all that. We don't need to distribute it.
That's right.
So it makes a lot more sense. And then, ultimately one day we're not going to be overseas, but that church will still be there. So it just makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, I'm convinced more and more that so much of that us doing all the different pieces is really about it's because we need the validation, or I mean, we're just the heroes, right? We're the people that are coming in to save the day, and that's just not the truth. It's not. It's one of our missions is to bring dignity, and so when we are doing something, we want to make sure that people feel very much like there's equity in the relationship. And so since the starting point is already power that's not equitable, we have to do work to make it equitable. And so not having our faces, being the highlight of our work is an important aspect. That's why even I mentioned to you earlier about, you don't have to mention me, because a lot of my friends are the people we work with, and they, from my perspective, they really are the heroes. I honestly they're really the ones that they would be shy to speak English, but they're the ones that should be interviewed because they work a lot harder than I do. So, but I just play the part that God's called us to play.
Who are some of those people, if you can share, a story maybe
Yeah,
of one or two?
Sure. So it's really cool. Kuya Nilo and his wife Thelma. So we have this community, and we have a really wonderful pastor who can connect to this community because of his own story, but he oftentimes has to. He doesn't live in that community, and so we've been praying for a long time that we would be able to get someone who could be a part of the pastoral team who would live in that community. And so God's been calling this guy Kuya Nilo to this work for like years and years. And he is a trucker, and he works. I mean, as a trucker, he worked tireless. I mean, literally, I kid you not, 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so, I mean, I've never met anyone work as hard as him. And so with that, he made a decent provision for his family in this context, because he worked so incredibly hard. And so, but God was calling him into ministry, and he struggled for a long time. Like, man, if I go into ministry, I'm going to take a massive pay cut. Again, in context, I won't give you details, but it's significant. And God just kept working on him, and he did it last year right before the fire. And I mean, it's incredible, his faith, to say, okay, God, I'm just giving up this thing that keeps my family surviving, right? And now I'm completely dependent on you, like literally so dependent on you every single month. I mean, just amazing. And he did it. And so, and a month later, the fire broke out, and God using him and his family, and because he's in that community, he's able to really shepherd the church that meets there, that lives there, who has Bible studies in that community, who are discipled in that community. They're now activated to do this work for the whole community, this informal settlement. And so, because there's leadership, there doesn't have to have somebody come from the outside, and for many years that was all we had, so God was providing us this team member who was able to be immersed there. And so because that person lives there now, and there's leadership there, really I just see God and the church just shining brightly, and then we play our part, and then it's like really a partnership, um, and I think one of the coolest things is for any church to be able to partner with another church, where each one of you are doing things that the other just couldn't do without the other, like just a real symbiosis. And so we get to experience that, and it's pretty sweet.
That's awesome. How long have you guys been in the Philippines?
4 years now.
And moving there, coming into it, did you always know that this would be your strategy, or is this something that you've adjusted as you've learned? What's the quick backstory on that?
Yeah, so we actually I was here at a conference, for a conference of all things, and kind of ran into this work with education and poverty, and I was just blown away at the efficacy of it. And so I wanted to be a part of it, and so that was kind of the instigator to kind of get us here. And then we came here to work with the under-resourced communities, and we continue to do that. So that was the prompter, and that's our passion.
Yeah. Well, it just seems like you guys are uniquely positioned, or pre-positioned, I should say, to be able to respond to today's crisis. You have those relationships, you have those structures, you even have those values, I think, rightly organized to take the approach that you're taking. Had you not had those, I would imagine it would be a more difficult situation that you're facing. So, I mean, I guess I am just repeating what I hear you say, an affirmation, but also encouragement, knowing that that's that you are positioned well to respond to the needs that are coming up today, and it's because you started on the right foot. That's cool.
Yeah, thank you. There's another person who's really important too. So so up until last October, I was the director of the whole ministry here, and so one of our missions, or one of our goals, was to raise up a Filipino to be the director, and the leader from that perspective, not just the sort of native director, but someone else is the leader, but the director and leader. And so we were able to make that transfer of position and authority last October. And so it's been really, really satisfying to see this person. Her name is Let Arese, Ate Let Arese, to see her bring leadership to the ministry during this super difficult time is just very satisfying to me. So really, from our perspective, we get to play just one aspect, and then we get to just coach and encourage, but everything is truly shoulder to shoulder, because they're already in positions of authority, they're in positions of leadership, and then that part of that conversation then is what does ownership look like, and that's always the key part of real leadership, is owning it. So it's been fun to see all of us take ownership of the parts that God's called us to.
Awesome.
One of the things, to switch topics a little bit, one of the things that we really value in Envision is just issues of soul care and dealing with issues of the soul, wounds, lies that we believe. So from a cultural perspective in the Philippines, we've all had to deal with our own soul issues in quarantine, feeling stuck in our own homes. How does the Filipino culture, what do they do well as far as soul care issues in the churches, and what maybe are some struggles or some unique challenges that they face that we might not face? Obviously, besides the issue of food, day-to-day food is obviously a big challenge, but are anything besides that? I mean, maybe that's the main one.
Yeah, I think a couple of things that has really struck me about the Filipinos, really across the socioeconomic um, board, is there's just a resilience and durability. So you know, the capacity that so many of our friends have to endure difficulty is just incredible to me. And in that, to bring glory to the Lord, to give him, to give him praise, um, and and it's also very sincere. So they might, on one hand, be going through something profoundly difficult, like the loss of a child, the loss of a job. At the same time, um, give glory to God, and then cry their eyes out. And so there's an authenticity and a durability that the combination, because oftentimes we think of a durability with a hardness about it, you know, but that's not the case at all of Filipinos. It's a durability with a softness there that I find to be really um, beautiful, and from a picture of Jesus perspective, I think is reflective of his character. So I like their authenticity. I don't. I'm drawn to it. Um, I'm drawn to the durability and the strength they have. Um, and then it's also very much a sharing community. And so, if you have something in excess, to share it with somebody who doesn't is just natural and normal, and something that, well, of course you do that. So it doesn't necessarily need to be taught. As a discipleship principle, it's a cultural principle. If I have two pieces of bread and you don't have any, and I only need one, then of course I would give you one. So,
Or two rolls of paper, right?
yeah, exactly. It's true. And so, and that's true, like even in these communities that we serve, the under-resourced communities, when there is somebody in the community who has a little bit more resources, um, that there is a sharing that takes place, and so, um, so I think those are some things that I think are real strengths. When I ask a question of anyone that's a heart level question, it's very easy for Filipinos to access their heart and to experience emotion, which I think is just super cool because they're, like I said earlier, I'm now repeating myself, they're just very durable people. I think challenges. You know, I don't know that this is a challenge. This is a cultural reality. I think that for folks that we work with, some of the pain is so profoundly great that if they were sort of given what we would say in the West, sort of opportunity to process and heal, um, it it it, uh, it should be provided for sure. Um, but for so many people, the way that they make it is optimism. You know, it's there's an attitude of um, it's going to be okay. So with that, uh, there isn't that kind of victimhood that can happen naturally when someone's gone through a lot of pain and difficulty. Um, I don't experience a lot of blaming other people or blaming God. I guess the challenge might be blaming themselves. That would be a thing, like experiencing, what did they do wrong, that kind of a thing, which we all struggle with. Um, so I think any challenges that I might run into probably are just cultural differences on how we look at what to do with our pain. What needs to happen with our pain. I think it's really remarkable to see people who have gone through, I mean, things that I just can't imagine. Losing, like there's, no mom, no dad. Um, you're 16, basically getting a GED, raised by a brother, um, there's no future, and somehow having enough fortitude and internal grit to get your education, to go to college, to get a job, to serve the church, to serve other people, and to do that with authenticity and openness and honesty. I mean, I see that all the time. And so, so I think that reflection of grit and beauty and honesty, authenticity are soul care pieces that I see. So along with that, then, to kind of answer your question the long way around, so being present with people and letting them share their story, I think is something that is healing, because people are going through so much. Oftentimes people don't have a chance to share their story because it's like everyone's in a lot of people that we serve, they all have similar stories, you know. And so and who wants to sit around, you know, it's not necessarily natural to sit around and talk about how bad things are, but in a safe space, to have someone hear your story and to affirm the faithfulness, and also to just create space where you feel like you blew it, to create a grace space for that person, kind of representing the presence of Christ there. We've seen that be very healing as well. So.
That's good. Appreciate that. And then, you know, we haven't really talked about it explicitly, but just the hope. We've seen it. I've seen it in the U.S. at least through Facebook and things, when people are really turning to Christ for that hope. Obviously, people in the situations of extreme poverty, and parents, just breaks my heart to think of people that have no hope without Christ. There's no hope out of poverty, no hope, no family, but Christ just makes just all the difference. Have you seen? I guess the question then: have you seen a response to the gospel through this? And the hope, I guess.
I think, yeah. I mean, definitely hope, and it's. It really is in exactly what you said, Brandon. It's really centered on the person of Christ, and how Christ is presented through the church, from the church. I think for our community, because there's such a we can't meet in church, and because there's not necessarily the access to technology that would be necessary to sort of continue to meet via online. People are doing it. We have Facebook services, and our community tries to meet in Bible studies, but even that's very limited. I think because there's such a distribution of people, I don't know that I've seen a coming to Jesus. What I've seen is a glory to Jesus, the bride looking beautiful is kind of how I think of it. And so it's more the longer term impact that has. And so in that way, I definitely see the proper, the beauty of the gospel is heralded through the church by both the works that's coming from the church, but then like you're referring to, I mean, there's so much pointing to Jesus in terms of his provision and his hope provided, so that's happening from so many different sources, from the network within our community, that it's definitely making a difference. And just to put the other perspective on it, though, every day is an opportunity to find that hope again, because every day is a reminder that you're dependent, or that you hope someone brings food that day. And so, because the difficulty at this point, anyways, is such that like people are feeling that isolation, that the impact of not being able to work, the impact of not having a lot of food, not being able to go anywhere. And so every day is kind of battling for a little bit of movement towards Jesus, towards the good news. And so I've been very blessed to see that happen all the time. Like every day I'm getting good information from our community that is like, wow, God is beautiful, but I'm very much aware that it's a choice every single day, because I mean, neighbors are dying, children are suffering. I mean, the suffering is so prevalent that the persistence of faithfulness is another expression of that really is beautiful to me, because I mean, that's the reality to it. So the turning towards Jesus because of his provision of food, it's great today, but tomorrow I'm hungry again, so it's really longer term and community based, so.
Sure.
You hear those cats by chance?
Is that what that is?
Fighting?
Yeah, so we live in open air context, so we have some crazy street cats that just go mad. They are fighting right now. It's violent, I can tell you.
They're not following physical distancing orders.
They
They're
are
gathering.
not following the social distancing. And right now, if they were caught, they'd be taken to jail.
Do they ever sound like babies where you are?
Oh yeah, sound like babies, like just shrill. It's just awful.
I remember at times thinking, when we lived in a different city here, the cats at night would just go nuts. And I remember the first few times when like somebody left a baby.
Oh, totally.
Like
I've had the same. Is there a baby screaming?
Right.
Yeah, no.
And then
nope, just
die, and then
cats.
Those are cats. Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy.
Yeah.
I'd say I could go in the other room, but it's all open air, so it's just one room to the next room.
Wow. Special guests here at
Oh
the end.
yeah.
This is great. It adds to the perspective of your context. So not only is it 95 degrees, but you have cats howling in the streets. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no dogs or roosters, so that actually shows you that we're privileged here, only cats.
Nice. Well, Mark, I appreciate your time. Is there anything, I mean, before we close, is there anything else that you really want to mention? How we can be, Alliance people can be praying for you, some of the big needs that you guys have going on right now, how we can support you, and anything to add before we wrap up.
Yeah, I think you'd asked the question. I'm not sure I answered it explicitly. You said, what did you not say in the 3 minutes? And the thing that I wanted to convey is that the reality on the ground for people is so much more challenging than a 2-minute video with a smiling missionary, and so it's really, really hard. And I guess I want people to connect to that. However they do that, to connect that there's suffering, real suffering. It's not pretty. It's not nice. It's painful. It's difficult. It's crying. It's unsure. It's insecure. It's crying out to God. I mean, it's real humanity kind of stuff. And so that sometimes gets missed in a video, but it always gets missed in a video, but just to make that connection. So yeah, and just to pray for our communities, and pray for the church in those communities that are representing Jesus, and pray for protection, especially for our leaders, that oftentimes, need to be able to go and interact with different people in the community that are just suffering, and so they put themselves at risk, of course. And so, I guess that would be my ask, is to just keep our communities, and all communities actually that are disproportionately impacted by this particular crisis.
Well, I appreciate your time. We'll cut this off so we don't go on forever and ever. But I appreciate you. Love you. Thankful for you as a leader and co-worker in Envision.
Yeah, thanks, Mark.
Did a lot.
Yeah, thanks for having us, or having me, and the perspective. So I really appreciate you guys doing this. It's great.
Thank you for asking those cats to join us too, right there at the end.
Yeah, well, that was the us part. I said thanks for having us. That was, those are actually my children fighting, but I didn't want
to. All right. Well, we'll cut this off. Thanks again, and hopefully we'll talk again.
Absolutely. We'll see you then. Thanks.